WICU and its partners are proud to bring you Erie's Greatest Generation Remembers.
People don't realize 70 years, your own mind just can't touch back on things unless it's something that really stood out. Why, it's tough to recollect back that far.
It is. Yeah, well, it is 70 years. Thinking back, it doesn't seem like 70 years, but to me and Stan, it's like yesterday, but to younger people, it's ancient history, probably. Once we got to Belgium, we got involved in a lot of military action. We got involved in the Battle of the Bulge, and I was in a 90mm anti-aircraft unit. The Germans, when they didn't realize how many tanks and stuff the Germans still had, but when they broke through, we were supposed to be guarding a big fuel dump, and it was probably the biggest fuel dump in that area. When we were set up on the hill, some planes come into the area, and there was 4 planes swooped down into the valley and blew up the fuel dump. Flat car loads, thousands of 5-gallon cans of gasoline and other fuel stored down there, and they bombed, the 4 planes bombed that fuel dump, and that place was an inferno. It was hell on earth. The flames were hundreds of feet high. The German army was practically out of fuel, and they needed that real bad, and because they didn't get that, things turned around, and the Americans pushed the Germans back. This all took place in the middle of December of '44. And then we moved up closer in the German territory, and come Christmas Day and New Year's Day, we encountered artillery fire like crazy, almost like hailstones coming in. But we were lucky that whoever was making the ammunition for the Germans, instead of gunpowder, they stuffed a lot of those artillery shells with sawdust. So when they hit the ground, it didn't go off, and we could see them coming by. They hit the ground, come end over end, we could see them going by, and it didn't explode. And thank God they didn't, otherwise I probably wouldn't be here today. We got that kind of artillery Christmas Day and New Year's Day. Those 2 days stand out with me that we really got shelled heavy. And after the war was over, we were shipped to Dachau, the concentration camp, for the cleanup. And this was a really mess. There was hundreds of dead bodies, decayed dead bodies everywhere, and the stench, the smell, it was horrible. And we had to clean this mess up, and they had a big burial ground nearby where they mass buried most of these bodies that were left there at Dachau. And we left Dachau. It was in 1946. We left Dachau and came home. When I did get home, my dad wanted to know some of the things that happened. I told him I had so many close calls. I said, I guess I should be thankful that I'm even here. I said, just lucky that I am here. And he says, Charlie, that's not luck. He said, that's prayer. I said, Pop, I'm not very good at that. And he said, I know that. He said, but I am. So he said, your mother and I prayed for you every day and every night that you would come home safely. So that sticks in my mind that my dad was so concerned. I was also involved with the 23rd Special Forces, which was called the Ghost Army. The guys in the Ghost Army, they worked in that area there, and what they did mostly was make recordings of tank movements, truck movements, and so forth, and put it on the back of a truck with a loudspeaker and make it sound like there was a lot of action going on there, and which there wasn't.
Right.
And that was effective. Of course, the Germans used the same thing. They did the same thing to us.
I got to notice, like everybody, that we was going to go take her. We'd already taken her physical, got our notice we're going into the service, and I came up here to Erie, and I was inducted at the Armory on 6th and Parade. How I ended up in the Pacific, Charlie was in the Atlantic, but how I ended up in the Pacific, out of our battalion, they took 50 soldiers alphabetically, and it went from A to about D, I think, and they got their 50 soldiers and they sent us to Fort Ord, California, after we had 10 days furlough. I was told that we was one of the last ships, transport ships, that went into the Pacific Islands, that went on the zigzag course, which was the way the ships traveled to keep enemy ships from using torpedoes on them. Well, we was on the ship 2.5 weeks, and we ended up pulling into the harbor in Manila, out about roughly 4 miles, because Manila Harbor at that time was just full of a lot of ships from the Spanish-American War were still sitting there. They'd never been moved, plus a bunch of Japanese ships that was sunk there. So they put us over cargo nets into barges and brought us into Manila Harbor. And I remember when we got into the harbor, it was raining like hell, and we had to probably walk about a mile or mile and a half to this 7-Eleven Repo Depot. And we got our notice that this outfit up in the mountains needed so many soldiers because they'd been taking a pretty rough beating. Put us on this train. It was a narrow gauge railroad, and took us as far as they could. And they dumped us off that night in a rice paddy. We slept there in the rice paddy overnight, waiting for somebody to come and pick us up and take us to the company up in the mountains a little bit farther. Once we joined the outfit, we started almost immediately going north, because they wanted to get all the snipers and everybody they could from where we were stationed up clear to the very northern point of Luzon, which was a Perry. And that's how far we went. And then basically we had everything cleaned out. And I remember this one time, my buddy and I went up in this stream to take a bath, and we got all scrubbed up and lathered up, and we hadn't probably had a bath for 2 or 3 weeks. And after we was done bathing, we walked over and put our clothes on, and then we walked up the stream to get ready to come back down to where our tents were. And there was 5 or 6 Japs laying in this stream. They was decayed to a point where it wasn't too healthy water to be taking a bath in. I don't see anybody that wants to go around telling people, hey, I killed 6 Japs coming down the street the other day, and I saved 3 or 4 of my buddies because they would have got them if I hadn't got them. When you're fighting the enemy, you never know what to expect next. And I had the greatest squad leader in the world, and he took care of us like a mother hen takes care of her little chicks. They made sure that we didn't venture into any more troubles than we already had inherited. Everybody was totally brothers. Everybody looked out for one another. You didn't have to worry about anything like that because it was just a band of brothers. My mother wrote every single day. I got a letter from her. The only thing was you didn't get them every single day. You might go 3 or 4 weeks without a letter, and then you get 20 or 30. But she wrote every day. My dad was a heavy smoker, and I knew this, and I didn't smoke. So I started saving cigarettes a few weeks before it was time to come home, and I got, I don't know how many, I must have 50, 75 packs of cigarettes in the bottom of my barracks bag. And when I got home and gave them to my dad, he was extremely happy to get them. And like I said, he took the one cigarette out of a pack and he put it up on the wall in the dining room. He said, that's going to stay there until the day you come home. And that stuck out in my mind very much whenever I come home, and he took that cigarette down off the wall and smoked it. I had a couple very close friends that never made it back. They were very close friends because you become friends immediately because you know you're leaning on one another, and when you see somebody go down, it's tough. And I've always felt that I was spared in World War II as a disciple for all the soldiers are lying in these cemeteries with white crosses, that I feel that are the ones that made, those people are the ones that made the supreme sacrifice and never had a chance in life whatsoever. They were mowed down at 19, 20 years old, and it just don't seem fair that we were able to go on and go through the war and come home. So I know there has to be a special reason for that.
I went in before I graduated from high school while I was in the Navy. In fact, I was going through submarine school when my class graduated. So they sent me to boot camp and then submarine school, submarine diesel school. And I ended up in the West Coast where they commissioned about 20 subs in Mare Island, California. So instead of my active duty training again, I ended up 42 days on the Nuki Spadefish, even though I wasn't Nuki qualified. I was a senior chief petty officer when I retired, and my whole career was submarine service. What most people don't remember or know about World War II, in personnel, the submarine service represented 2% of the Navy. Yet they sank 55% of everything sunk in World War II, made 5 orbitals, and ended up the most efficient sub in World War II. They sank 32 Jap ships, including a carrier. When they got the figures right, that the most efficient sub in World War II was a Spadefish, who sank a Jap ship every 7 1/3 days. I'm very proud of that. Battle station surface, I was on a 50 millimeter machine gun. We didn't use it too often, but when we did, we carried weapons up there, but we were sitting ducks out in the open to start with. They could pick you off pretty easy on the surface. And if you got hit and couldn't dive, you're gone. We were the first sub to have special gear put on that picked up mines, trying to go through a minefield submerged. And it never worked real good. In fact, we were the first sub to have it installed on. And it ended up, the submarines had sank so much shipping that there wasn't too many ships left to sink with the subs we had. The worst part of it is, we were on our own basically. There was nobody no surface craft or anybody outside of another submarine could rescue. When a sub went down, it was usually all hands. We had a few that had survivors, went aground on a reef, stuff like that. But they figured 1 out of 4 submariners basically wasn't going to come home. Before they dropped the atomic bomb, they got a group together and they called Operation Barney. And they had 9 subs with the mine gear to go through the Hiroshima Straits into the Sea of Japan, which was tough to get in and out of because of the minefields. You went in submerged, all you had to do was hit a mine and you're gone. In fact, the submarine service probably had the highest casualty rate in the U.S. We lost 52 subs in World War II because the first few years, that's all they had. The 9 boats went into the Sea of Japan. It was not a mission we were very happy with. The last of June 1945, we lost the bonefish up there, and 8 of us got out through the other opposite strait, the Lapérouse Straits, to get out of the Sea of Japan. And we went full bore and ended up in Midway and then back into Pearl. We pulled in Pearl the 4th of July, and we were getting ready to go out again. The day the war ended, they kept us in Pearl till late in October and sent us back to the States after the war ended. We pulled into Mare Island on a Sunday in October, about 3 people out because the war was over. And we were the top sub to come out of Mare Island. It was kind of sad, to come in but we were happy we made it back.
The Japanese, we felt were ready to surrender, and yet we knew that there was something going on in the country. The reason why they didn't, nobody had ever flown that far. That was the longest bombing mission of World War II. We were in the air for 38 hours. No, we left in the middle of the afternoon, and now we usually dropped our bombs around 1, 2 o'clock in the morning, and then come back to Guam, and we burned 6,000, almost 7,000 gallons of high-test gasoline. Bombed the Akita oil refinery, which was in northern Honshu, and nobody had ever flown that far before. But Harry Truman said, "You guys can do it." So we did pretty much destroy the oil refinery at Akita. We tried to run the Japanese out of oil for their suicide planes, and I think we did a fairly effective job. That has been recorded as part of the last mission, and I was part of the last mission of World War II. But anyhow, that's pretty much the way the war ended. We went back to Guam, and we heard the message on the way back that the Japanese had surrendered, and so the war was over. We're real thankful that we didn't have to invade Japan. Because that what we found out later, that would have been probably one of the bloodiest campaigns that the United States ever got involved with. and at least I'm real thankful because I'd probably been right in the middle of it. I was thankful that I didn't have to go through that. We were hit with anti-aircraft. Of course, the people that planned our mission did a very good job in that the first plane would go in at 20,000 feet, and the Japanese would set their anti-aircraft to hit a plane at 20,000 feet. But our next plane went in at 19,500, and so these things were exploding over the top of us. And they scaled us down 500 feet every plane. Like the third plane would go in at 19,000, and then 18,500, 18,000, until we got down to 15. Then we'd start over again at 20,000 feet. So that kind of helped protect us from the anti-aircraft. The Japanese, it took them a while till they caught onto that, but by that time we were all gone. One of the problems that we ran into at that point was the prisoners of war in Japan were guarded by the guards, and when they got word that the war was over, where they all went home and left the barracks full of prisoners of war with no one to provide them with food and all the necessities of life, and so they said that there were some parachutes over in Manila, so they sent several of our B-29s to Manila, and our plane was one of them. We flew to Manila and got a load of parachutes and took them back to Guam, and the Seabees made up pallets of food and anything else that the guys who had been prisoners might need, and then we hooked a couple parachutes to each of these pallets, and then we went up and dumped those off at the prisoners of war camps, supplies to the prisoners of war. And so that was one of the significant things in my way of thinking, was that we were able to supply the guys who had been prisoners. Some of them had been prisoners for 4 years, since Corregidor, and we were able to provide them with the food and clothing and so forth that they needed, and because we couldn't get in to move them out until after the armistice was signed on September 2nd. Anyhow, we flew to, we got a load of supplies and took them to Okinawa and unloaded them, and run our way back, and we caught in I think the same typhoon that had raised all the havoc in Okinawa. So we flew through that, and our plane was pretty well beat up. In fact, it tore the ailerons off our plane. And so we flew from there, from the storm, and crash landed on Iwo Jima. And normally a B-29 would land at about 90 miles an hour, and so they advised us not to monkey with the airspeed, just bring her in as it was. So we touched down about 220 miles an hour, which was more than double what the normal landing speed of a B-29. And of course the guy slid, was 10,000 foot runway, and that's almost 2 miles. And so we slid the wheels for over a mile. On the time we got stopped at the other end, you could stick your fist through the tires on the plane, and so we crash landed at the B-29, and I was thankful when, of course, we had a pretty rough ride, and we had a passenger with us who had been, we didn't have any seat for him to be strapped in, so he just bounced around. He went through a plywood, remember I said we took the guns off, there was a well where there had been guns that was covered with a 3/4 inch piece of plywood, and so he went through that plywood And so we pulled him out of that turret well, and he was pretty well banged up. He couldn't put on a parachute and jump in a parachute. And so we decided we'd all ride her in, so we did. And thankfully, we had a good pilot. There's a fellow named Don Ethier. Don is not with us anymore, but I've been always thankful for Don Ethier that he was able to land this B-29 without using flaps and no ailerons, which is help balance the plane. And I've got a picture of the one wing with the aileron hanging, not able to be used. So anyhow, that's one of my memorable things. The few minutes that we were in this storm, you know, we had no way of knowing that we were ever going to come out of it, but we did. Somebody was watching over us, and so I've always been thankful that we got through that. We did lose a couple. Well, one of them was hit by anti-aircraft, and I lost a good friend. Leonard Seek was a fellow that I went through all through the radar school, and it's tough to lose friends, but then that's more, I guess.
I respect anybody on submarines today. In fact, they're a distinct bunch as far as I'm concerned, and the Navy is part of my life, but basically the submarine part is the best, and because you had a different group of men.
Well, what happened in Europe had to be done. Germany conquered all those small countries, and Germany had to be stopped. That Nazi party was too strong, and what we did to stop them was the right thing to do.
Well, it certainly changed the world, because that war went on for so long, and being in both theaters, the Europe and the Pacific, there was, well, we lost 410,000 soldiers alone, and that's a lot of people.
WICU and its partners are proud to bring you Erie's greatest generation remembers.